This is The Recap, a weekly reflection on the sermons of Fellowship Baptist Church in Mainville, Ohio, seeking to help you make Jesus essential in every aspect of your life. I'm your host, Ryan Land, and I'm here with the preacher of this week's sermon, Brent Wilson. Brent, welcome back to the show.
Good to be back, Ryan.
Welcome back. I would say like he's not here 98% of the shows. I think I outrank you on number of shows, but there have been a couple I'm not in.
That's true.
Maybe just one though. With Nate.
One with Nate.
I think I've only missed one.
Yeah, that may be the case.
I wonder how many episodes we've done. You ever think about that?
I don't know. We could task Josh with finding that.
Yeah, that's what Josh wants. More tasks.
He's the taskmaster. Oh, you already got an answer? 3, 5, 6, 7, 37? No, there's got to be more than that.
On YouTube, he's saying.
Oh, video ones? 37 video?
Oh, I was thinking on the new set. I was like, that's crazy, but we also did it on the old set. So
yeah. There's
got to be more than there's more than 37.
Yeah, so we got to be pushing 200?
No, what a jump.
You don't think we're pushing 200?
You think we've been doing it for 4 years straight?
Is that what 200 would be?
I mean, 52 weeks times 4.
That's good.
Would be 200, a little over 200.
So I'm up 150?
Yeah, maybe.
Josh, you're going to
leave a comment on the YouTube video. How many episodes of The Recap do you think there are? Maybe that's my icebreaker question, Brent, is how many episodes of The Recap do you think there are? I'm going to say...
Is this Price is Right rules if you go over?
Yeah, Price is Right rules. Of course.
Okay, I'm going to lock in my number and then you lock in yours.
Great. I already know
I got it.
I already know what I'm going to do, chat.
I got my number.
All right, me too.
127.
126, Alex.
Oh, that was... False. Cheater.
It's not like I used a calc.
A calc. That's short for calculator chat.
I just said chat earlier because I've been hanging out with the teenagers. That's what they say. Anytime they're talking to anyone, they say, I see you looking at my phone, Brent. It's because my iPad is dead and my computer's almost dead.
I got my phone right here.
I have to look at my notes.
Look, I got my sermon pulled up in case I need to reference anything
on the app.
Actually, I don't have it pulled up, but I'm gonna be pulling it up right now.
Let's. I'm trying to think of a. Okay, you told a funny story about.
I'm the funniest.
Playing with fire.
Yes.
Do you have any funny like arson story? Like you were playing with not arson, like you lit something on fire intentionally, but like playing with fire because like kids, specifically boys, they just like to play with fire. So got any?
Well, I did.
Got any funny stories about playing with fire?
There was one time I was in my computer room because that was the thing.
Hey, if you're Gen Z, Brent is about to explain to you what a computer room is.
Did y'all have a computer room?
Oh, duh, dude.
Yeah, so basically an office.
Had our Dell tower in there with running Windows 95.
Well, yeah, it's like because like a family had a computer. It's not like everyone had their own computers or tablets or phones. And so it was like there's one space in the house that occupied the computer,
and that's where mom and dad checked their email on America Online. And it would go. And it'd say, "You've got mail."
Yes, great times. In that computer room, I don't know why. I'm probably like 8 years old, 9 years old. Maybe there's a candle. I don't know. I had a piece of paper balled up, and for some reason, I lit it on fire.
Oh no.
I was thinking maybe I would just like have it and like I was playing with it and blow it out or something. But then it kind of got out of hand and like I had to like stomp it or something and get it out. And I was like, well, could have burned my house down, but
you didn't.
I did not.
So in my room growing up, there was like a spot where I had definitely like lit something on fire and dropped it, but I can't for the life of me remember what I did. But during that illustration in your sermon, I was sitting next to Josiah Mabry and I look over at Josiah because one of the first things we did when I came as the youth minister is we had like a camp out at like one of Tyler McConnell's like properties and me and Brett Bailey, we slept in our hammocks. Yeah. And some other guys brought tents and stuff. But we made like a big bonfire. And then we stayed up, we played games or whatever. And then we went back we weren't super concerned. We put the fire out, but it was still,
yeah,
it wasn't
embers.
It wasn't. Smokey the Bear would not have approved.
Okay.
If it's too hot to touch, too hot to leave.
Did you pee on the fire?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I actually know we didn't because of this story I'm about to tell you. So I wake up and I pull my head out of my hammock. And Josiah Mabry is standing there at the fire pit where we were, holding a stick with it's just like flaming on the top, like it's a torch. And you got to imagine this is like 8th grade Josiah Mabry. Yeah. So it's like long hair, short, very skinny, just staring at me, holding a torch. It's like actually on fire. And this is what I did. I went just back to my hammock. And so when you were talking about playing with fire, I was like looking at Josiah like, remember when you did that?
Oh, yeah.
So
I've got a random question. You talk about your room as a kid. Did you ever have a waterbed?
Okay. Yeah, I did.
I did too.
That was very hip. Josh, did you ever have a waterbed? Yeah. I don't think they make them anymore.
Probably not.
That's so funny.
TBH, not that comfortable.
You know what was the end of our waterbed?
Did you pop it?
Yeah.
With what?
A golf tee.
Well, why did you have a golf tee in your bed?
I don't know.
Your mom's a golf coach?
I didn't do it.
Oh.
My brother did, I think.
Gosh, or water go everywhere?
No, you left it in there.
Oh, and it kept it plugged.
So we're just kind of leaking a little bit. But yeah, it was crazy.
Man.
Maybe, yeah. None of my family listens to this, but they might dispute that story, but that's how
you remember
That's how I remember it going down.
That's how we're going to tell it.
That's right. Okay, let's talk about the sermon. We could talk about water beds and computer rooms all day.
We could.
90s peak culture. But
the 90s is peak culture.
That's
all uphill to the 90s, downhill since.
That's a podcast for a different day. Let's talk about your sermon.
Okay.
Uphill. We're
peak
going
sermon?
Up. Peak sermon. Not peak. We're going up.
Okay.
We're still next week. We're still going up.
All right.
I probably shouldn't do that. The hand gesture I was just doing. I'm going to get Elon
Musk. Nazi Ryan.
Why did you say it like Donald Trump?
I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about first was the story you told about the guy, about J.D. Greer and witnessing to the guy. Because I think there might be some confusion about this. Because you specifically said Baptist church, it's like, and they teach once saved, always
Southern
saved.
Baptist church.
Southern Baptist church, they teach once saved, always saved. I was like, I feel like people, when they heard Southern, their ears may have perked up, you know? And because we're not often talking about being Baptists or Southern Baptists or whatever. So kind of explain the misunderstanding that's happening in that story, right? Like once saved, always saved versus this guy's life versus, what James is saying. Just kind of start because I think it's the perfect kind of picture of what James is talking about, but also just because I want to be super clear about like what it means when we say once saved, always saved, and what we believe about that.
He thinks it's the perfect story because he's the one that gave me the story.
That's not why I think it's the perfect story. You said it was great. I said, hey, in this book, there's this story.
That was my subtle way of giving you credit for the story.
But it was also like a little bit of a put down.
No, not a put down.
It was a compliment.
It was just a playful tease.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, so when we say once saved, always saved.
I thought you were about to say, what was the question?
I had to get there.
That was the youth minister in me that was like, what was the question?
So when we say once saved, always saved, I think what a lot of people think, erroneously, wrongly, is that you had this salvation moment, you prayed this prayer, you did the steps to get saved. Mm-hmm. And now God has written your name down in his book, the Lamb's Book of Life. And he wrote it in pen, and he doesn't have an eraser. And so once your name's in there, you're good.
It doesn't matter if it has an eraser anyway, because he wrote it in pen.
Yeah. Sometimes people have this like
erasable
pen stuff. Yeah.
And if anyone's got an erasable pen,
God does.
But
people think, he wrote it in magic marker and it's final, and so
just use that.
So you're saved. That means you're always saved. Magic and eraser. So you're good. Now, the problem is there's
time out. I just made a little bit of a joke underneath, and it made me think of something that I have to address.
Okay.
Magic marker, permanent marker, right? Magic eraser. Was that made in response to the magic marker? Because it could erase magic marker?
Can it erase magic?
Yeah.
Oh, the magic eraser like that, like the Mr. Clean one.
I did it in my basement.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Don't know.
Leave a comment if you think. Sorry, keep going.
So the problem is with the once saved, always saved thing is technically that's true in a sense. The question isn't about whether or not your name can be erased. It can't be. Once your name's in, it's in. So there's a great sense in which God writes in magic. He writes it down in blood. The problem is the assumption that your name was written down. So the assumption that, I prayed the prayer, I said the words, I got baptized, I did the things the guy told me to do.
Yeah, I checked all the boxes.
Therefore, my name got written down. And I think
I'm good.
Yeah, so I'm good. And so I think really that is the faulty assumption that your name was written down, because there's a great chance that you said all the words, you said the prayer, you did the thing, you walked the aisle, you got the baptism, and your name was never down.
Yeah. So it's something you've said that it's like, it's not an incantation.
Yeah, it's not witchcraft.
Yeah. And so it's like, what we would say is witchcraft is you say these specific words in a specific scenario, and then like the world changes, right? There's magic, right? That happens.
And it forces God to save you. You said those words and now God has to save you.
Yeah. We're saying it's not that.
So it's not that. And so, yes, it's true that once God writes your name down in this analogy, he can't erase it. So you once saved, always saved. It's true. We believe that.
We're going to talk about it later. A little more technical.
The question is, what gives us the confidence that our name was written down?
Yeah, and what does it mean to be saved?
Yeah,
right. And what does it look like? And I think that's the kind of the heart of the text and the sermon is like, what is saving faith? Right. Yeah. What does it actually look like? How can we observe it?
Yeah.
As outsiders, and is kind of what James is talking about. But I liked how you kind of broke up the sermon in these questions that James asks. And so I want to go through those. So first he asks, what good is it to have faith and not works? And this is where you talked about playing with fire. And I think this was an excellent illustration that I did not give you that you that came up with on your own. So explain that and how it relates to faith and works.
Yeah, just that what when you have faith, which when I get to later is ultimately trust, but this idea of belief, if it doesn't result in changed action, it's pointless. That's James. When it's dead, it's useless. But a belief that does result in changed action is good. And so, in the illustration, my belief that fire is hot resulted in I used the stick to play in the fire, not my hands. But my mom, when she would say the phrase, hey, if you play in the fire, you're going to pee in the bed. I didn't believe that. And so it actually didn't change my actions. Another thing what you might say is, I believe that drinking soda leads to kidney stones for me particularly.
This is getting real.
And while I'll go through seasons of not drinking soda, I still drink quite a bit of soda. And so
not recently, you've been doing really good.
I've been doing all right, but when right after I have a kidney stone, it's like, I'm never drinking soda again.
Yeah.
Right. But then I fall back into it and it's just the nectar of the gods. It's so good.
Mountain Dew particularly.
Mountain Dew. But it's like, so that belief is the belief that the soda leads to the kidney stone is useless in that it doesn't actually change my action.
Yeah.
Think about smokers. Right, it's like they believe the smoking is going to give them lung cancer, most likely.
Yeah. No one's like, all that stuff's a bunch of hooey.
Yeah. But the belief doesn't change their action, right? Or there's a counter belief.
Yeah.
That's stronger or something. But so the belief is useless. The faith is useless, as James would say.
Yeah. Well, I think there's kind of two. This is a little bit different than what you're saying, but it made me think of. So you sent me, or someone else sent me, but we've both seen it. This video of this guy who's getting baptized at this church.
Yeah.
And he's like, do you I think he's trying to prompt him to say Jesus is Lord.
Yeah.
And the guy says, I am Jesus.
The
pastor's like, what?
We're going to try that one more time.
And the guy says, I'm back, boys. Which is a crazy thing to say if you're claiming to be Jesus.
Yeah.
But so then he doesn't baptize him. And so in a sense, that guy's faith is just in the completely wrong direction, right? In the complete, or just fabricated, right? Or he's just doing a goof or whatever. But I was thinking there's also the sense where it's like you're taking a guy into the baptistry and you're talking to him or whatever, and he says, "Man, I can't wait to get this done, so then I can go back to sleeping with my girlfriend and getting drunk on the weekends, and just lists all these sins.
Yeah.
Like, man, I can't wait for Jesus' blood to cover those, so I can go do them all. I can go do them all again. I'm probably gonna say we're gonna put a pause on this.
Oh yeah,
because it's not that his faith is in the wrong thing. Right? He's putting his faith that Jesus can forgive sins, but his faith is not holistic in that it's changing his action. He actually doesn't understand the depravity of sin. He doesn't understand the goodness of grace. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of the
and he doesn't
gospel.
understand what Jesus is calling him to, right?
Yeah.
Because Jesus, and this is really my first point, Jesus isn't calling us to a belief system. Certainly there is a belief system.
Yeah.
But he's not calling us to a belief system. He's calling us to come and die, to come and serve the King, to give our lives in service to him. And so
that's great.
It's not come believe this, it's come and submit to this.
Yeah, which gets to the demon point, which I don't want to jump to that because they have all the right belief, but their life has not changed. One thing I think is really great about this particular moment in Scripture, this particular verses, is the image of the hungry person coming and saying, "Hey, I need food. I'm hungry," and the person saying, "Go." You call it a benediction. I'd never thought of it that way. It's like, go and be hungry no more. Go warm and be
Go
full.
be warm and fed.
Yeah, and James saying like that's nonsense.
Yeah.
And I think, you read that now and you're like, oh yeah, that's nonsense. But then you put it in this context of the benediction we give is, I'll pray for you. And so talk about that. I have the quote here because this quote, like I felt like you could hear a pin drop when you said this, is that saying I'm praying for you is often religious cover for failing to act.
Yeah.
And so how is the I'm praying for you sort of attitude contrary to what James is saying and prescribing in these verses?
Yeah, I mean, because while it is good, we don't want to undermine prayer.
Of course, like blanket statement, praying is good, it's powerful, it works, we should be doing it.
Yeah.
Saying I'm praying for you is not bad, but
you've got this person.
The car thing you gave was perfect.
So we'll just use that. Like this person in crisis, their car is broken down, and if they don't make it to their job tomorrow, they're going to be fired, or they're not going to be able to pay their bills, take care of their family or kids, whatever. And it's like they let their church family or the church people know this. I've got this crisis. And we'll go, man, we'll be praying for you. Cool.
All these people in their cars.
And certainly God can take those prayers and give them a car or whatever. But James's point is like, that doesn't actually help anything in this particular practical moment. And it's like, you need to be offering a ride.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times, we do that bare minimum thing to say like, well, at least I did something. Yeah. I commented, I'm praying for you.
Yeah.
I let people know.
Yeah.
And it's enough to self-soothe.
Yeah. I did my job.
I
feel good about it.
Yeah.
Look at me. Huh?
But it actually doesn't help the person in need.
Yeah. And that's not really James's point. I just feel like, and have been guilty of this, a lot of times I say, oh, I'm praying for you.
No, I think
but we actually never prayed.
I think that is James's point. I think that is that when someone comes to you with a need and you give them empty words, that your faith is either dead or on its deathbed.
Because if you legitimately have no ability to help them,
of course, right?
And you say, hey, there's nothing I can do, but I will go pray, and you earnestly go pray. Hey, that's actually
and there's a reason he uses the illustration he does. He doesn't say this person's dead. Yeah. And their family member comes and says, my husband has died. Will you help me? And they say, he's alive. Go be. It's like they can't do right. Yeah. It's a situation where they're helpless. But in a situation where you can help, to do the least amount is not living in response to your faith in what God has done, your faith in who God is and what He's called you to. Yeah. And so I think I closed my notes. Yeah, I think that was really powerful and just convicting. And so it was a great modernization of what James is.
It was so
saying.
funny. We were talking about this earlier, and you said, and I felt this too. It's like when I said that line, I felt like people went, "Ooh."
I thought it was like a gasp. It was like the air went out of the room. Yeah, it was like, oh, yeah, it was great.
We were all like, "Yeah, I've done that."
Oh, for sure. So stop commenting on Facebook that you're praying. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So then, excuse me. you move from that question, or James really moves from that question to the, can you show your faith apart from your works? And, James says, you show me, what does he say?
You show me faith without works, and I'll show you my faith by my works.
Yeah, by my works, right?
Yeah.
And so first, you made this distinction between telling about your faith and showing your faith. Kind of talk about that.
Yeah, so it's like, I used the analogy at some point. It's like, I could tell you guys I'm a famous chef, or I'm an excellent.
Shout out to all the Halo fans in the room. Brent's manuscript said Master Chief instead
Did
of
it
Master
really?
Chef. I was like, I can tell you I'm Master Chief. He's like, he's gonna take out the what is the bad guys in Halo? I can't remember. He's gonna use the plasma sword and
Running Riot. Double kill.
Dude, I want to like put a clip of you on YouTube, like with your manuscript scrolling, and then like the Master Chief helmet like coming on your head, like the music starting.
This is why I don't publish my manuscript, because all the typos. But no, yeah.
Shout out another typo. The title of the sermon was called "Faith with Our Works is Dead" in your manuscript, and I was like, glad that's not true. But that's just for you. It's not like it's got to be polished. Yeah. I'm not.
I don't go and edit it.
Yeah.
So if I tell people I'm an amazing Michelin 5-star chef, right, and I can say that all day long, but if you never see me actually cook something
or taste something that you've made,
then just empty words, right? And so
when Kathy Saul says, I make the best mac and cheese, she's not just telling us that. We have experienced the riches.
We've paid way too much. I don't know. We probably paid the right amount because it's so good.
The mac and cheese market is low when it comes to Kathy.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the works are proving the word's true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so. This is, hang with me. This is like a weird example.
Okay,
but there's a director, a film director I really like, who makes kind of like abstract, kind of like nonsensical movies. They have plots, they have characters, they have dialogue, but just stuff happens sometimes, and you're like, why is that happening? Like, what does that mean? And he's famous for never kind of like divulging any further information.
Okay.
Like, people will ask it. Like, at one point he said this, he says, this movie of mine is my most spiritual film. And the person interviewing him goes, oh, that's interesting. Can you elaborate on that? And he goes, no. So he just refuses. And this is why, is because he says cinema, movies are a kind of language. It's like, and when I'm telling a story in a movie, that's the language I'm trying to explain, is the language of cinema.
Yeah. What
people want to do is they want to take the language of cinema and put it into their language. They want to describe it in English. They want to try to, what does this mean? They want to describe it, and they want to say it meant this and use these English words. And he's like, no, the point is that you are experiencing the language of the movie, not that I'm trying to explain some English concept to you through the movie or whatever. And so your point here made me think of this, is that many times what we want to do is take all the spiritual things we know and turn them into our common language. We want to explain them with our words, when really what James might be suggesting here is that the better way to experience the faith of someone else is not through them telling you about it, but it's through the language of spirituality, the language of faith, right? That it's
the language of works.
Yeah, it's not them just saying, I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
It's experiencing the encouragement or the generosity or the compassion or the empathy or whatever it is of another person. Yeah. And that's the work. That's the testament to, this person knows the Lord. Yeah. So that was kind of a convoluted metaphor, but it was just stuck in my head.
I like that.
Anyway,
I don't remember if this was the point I said this in or not, but Tony Richards.
This was that. I was about to bring that up.
I was talking to her about the sermon beforehand, and she gave me that quote about one of her former pastors years ago said, the greatest insult a Christian could ever receive is someone that you know going, oh, I didn't know you were a Christian.
Yeah. That was another one of those moments where it was like, whoa. Yeah, because I think that's real. That's And that goes back to, again, James and the Sermon on the Mount, right? Salt has lost its flavor. What good is it? They throw it on the path for it to be trampled.
Yeah. And I think this is what, is it Francis of Assisi who's, I think, accredited this quote, maybe, that, share the gospel when necessary, use words. I think
he didn't say that. This guy would wake up in the morning and preach to birds and insects.
So, not him. But whoever said it.
He did. No, people say it was him. It was not him.
Not this dude. But anyway, whoever said it.
I just tried to protect my boy.
Yeah, your boy Francis. What the sissy? But whoever said it, I think that's what they're trying to get at.
Yeah.
That the
it
gospel,
is a very James kind of quote.
Yeah, the gospel should be evident in our life, and people should get it as much as they can through action before we say it.
But then, our most human inclination is like, okay, how do I do this the least amount possible?
Yeah.
So then we say, all right, I'm just gonna be nice to someone, just say hi to my neighbor before I go in.
Yeah.
And be like, I'm sharing the gospel with them because I said, hey.
Oh man, I didn't even think about this. What a convicting thought. That do your neighbors know you're a Christian?
Yeah, I got my Christian flag up outside.
Do you?
No, but I'm just saying, that's my. I'm trying to.
Yeah. My HOA probably wouldn't allow that.
That's what we'll say. Sue him, dude. Sue him. That's First Amendment. Your HOA president has a wolf on their front porch or whatever.
She does.
That can't be real. HOAs are fake if that's allowed. So, the other thing that I wanted to talk about here is kind of the idea, we talked about it earlier, is this idea of perseverance of the saints.
Okay.
Right? What is that? Give us a definition of perseverance of the saints, and how does it enter into the conversation here?
So that's a new phrase. So the phrase we said earlier was once saved, always saved.
Yes.
The reason we prefer the language of perseverance of the saints is because the once saved, always saved language gives this false kind of connotation that, God writes your name down.
And the responsibility is external to you.
Yeah. Perseverance of the saints communicates that everyone who is genuinely saved has been born again. The Spirit lives inside of them. God's made them a new creation. This thing has happened to you, right? That it wasn't just, I said some words and then God's like, okay, here's the happening. Like something you
it's
have
like we ordered it from Amazon, right? It's like he had to deliver it.
Right.
To us.
You have been transformed, right? When that has happened, you will persevere till the end.
Yeah.
Because you have so been changed by the Spirit of God, born again, your desires have changed. You will persevere to the end. So the perseverance of the saints says all saints will persevere.
Yeah.
So,
and there's this sense that the responsibility is sort of dualistic, and it's sort of a tension that we don't understand, that all true saints have to persevere to the end.
Yes.
And all true saints will persevere to the end, right? And so there's this sort of tension between you have to do it. You have to persevere. It's not going to be easy.
Yeah.
But also you will, right? Charles Spurgeon has this great quote that I love when we talk about perseverance of the saints. Temporary Christians are no real Christians at all. And so you talked about, it's like, this is a lifetime's worth of change
trying,
of attempting, right? And
seeking Jesus,
repenting and forgiving, right? And obviously we're not saying, and you got to, at some point you're going to get it right and you're going to be good, but it's that perseverance, right? You're always continually seeking, and as we're going to talk about, submitting and obeying Jesus as Lord. And so that's why I think the Charles Templeton story is apt, is because here's a guy, let's just say, in 1970, he got faith and he's got works, right? It looks like he's the whole package.
He looks good.
And then 1985, and he publishes his book, like Why God Is, I can't remember what it's called, Why I'm No Longer a Christian, or Why God Is Dead or something. And it's not that he didn't have faith in works, it's that he didn't persevere.
Yeah,
right?
Which proved his faith disingenuous.
Yes.
And his works not works done in faith.
Yes. And so I think that is a sobering reality, I think, especially for people like me and you who are doing the ministry. And I think we can sometimes, in the same way people will kind of self-soothe by saying, I'll pray for you, I think we can sometimes self-soothe by saying but I've given my life to this.
Yeah.
But how many thousands are there that gave their lives for a little bit?
Yeah.
And not for forever.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's, something we all have to strive for. So then the question comes, what does saving faith look like? If you got to show it, What was, what good is it to have faith without it? Right? What does it actually look like? And you kind of gave these three things. And so first, saving faith is more than belief, right? So okay, I want you to help me understand something. Where do you think this notion comes from? Because I generally was baffled by this story you told of people saying, "Well, I think they're a believer, but they're not a Christian."
It happens to me all the time.
Yeah, but why? Like, what's the disconnect? Do you think? Obviously, you may not know.
Yeah,
and it may be different case to case.
My assumption is just this the semantics, right? Of when I say believer, what I mean is a born again Christian. And what other people have heard is really kind of what James is getting at in this text, that they believe these things. They say they believe these things, but I don't actually think they're like genuinely a Christian.
Oh, okay,
that's what they're trying to say.
They would assent to it. They would say, "Yes, I believe that."
Yeah,
they just don't really act like it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense, because you said, I was like, how? Like, I did not understand.
Oh yeah.
How people would
make the distinction.
That. It would be like someone saying like, yeah, he's a frog, but he's not amphibian.
Yeah.
Like, out of the two things,
because you're like me, when you say believer, you think Christian. Yeah.
And so what can we, how can we keep from, I don't know, thinking like that or guard against, like, it was such a hard question, because I think we all know people like that.
Yeah.
And so, like, how do we think about that? Like, people that say they're believers but don't act like it. Like, are they believers? Are they not believers? Are they, are they, what's the like Christianese that we used to use? That's like, are they like backslide? Are they backsliding?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, how do you help people think through that?
Yeah. In some ways, it's like, let's all get on the same dictionary.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
Like use the same language. And so, I generally think that, saying someone is a believer shouldn't mean this person is regenerate, born again, Christian. And if somebody is like, would assent to believing those things, but you don't actually think they're converted, then you should say something to the effect of, yeah, they're lost. They're struggling there. They think they're saved, but they're not. There has to be some explaining in that. But generally, it's like, nope, they're an unbeliever.
Yeah,
the demons are unbelievers, even though they believe.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Like, and so
they don't have saving faith.
Yeah, and so some of that's just like
Semantic.
That's the way we use the word believer.
Yeah.
But it didn't have to be.
Legion is a believer.
Yeah,
it's not saving faith.
Yeah.
So how do you help when people come to you and they talk about people like that? How do you help them love those people well, minister those people well, evangelize those people well that think that they're believers?
Yeah. So that conversation comes up in a lot of different contexts.
For sure. Kids.
But it's like, maybe
older people.
Maybe they're talking about someone who's died, right? And I say, hey, were they a believer? And they'll go, well, no. Or yes, but I don't think they're saved, right? So it depends on the context. But if there's this hope of sharing the gospel with this person, sometimes I'm like, hey, you actually going to have to do some work to convince them they're lost first. And talk with them about, okay, what is Jesus calling you to? Do you see that in your life? How is Jesus calling you to come and die, to come submit to him as king? Like, and do you see the evidence of that in your life? So it's like really messy.
Well, yeah, and I think there's even part of this that's like, we can't see the heart, and that person may say, oh, like, I'm just like, say they're super like racist. Right? Just like vitriolic racism, posting, talking, right? All this terrible stuff. And you come talk to them and you're trying to help them see, it's like, hey, I actually don't think you're saved because of how you treat, people who are other from you.
Yeah.
It's like, think about how God treated you as the other. And they think, I've never thought about it like that. And they repent and they're, it's like, maybe they have genuine faith and and they were just blind to their sin in this one area. And now they've repented of their sin and they've grown. But potentially it's like, I've fundamentally misunderstood the gospel. And so I think, we can't come into conversations like that with the assumption.
Oh yeah. We can't know.
Yeah.
Right. But it's like, if I like to, I would rather assume someone's not a believer and be wrong.
Me too. Yeah.
Than assume they are and be wrong.
Yeah.
And so I want to go into those conversations. Like typically what it is the person that they're referencing hasn't been in church in 10 years, has done basically nothing spiritual in their life.
Yeah. No works, no fruit to point to.
Yeah.
Just intellectual kind of assent.
Yeah. Of course I believe those things.
Yeah.
Right. So in that person, it's like, hey, person, don't you think that someone who said they believe these things would want to be doing A, B, and C?
Mm-hmm.
You're not doing A, B, and C. What do you think that says about you?
Mm.
Right. So what are the probing questions that you can ask?
Yeah.
What are things you can point to? Because really, basically, they have this faulty foundation, and you're trying to poke holes into it so it collapses. And then they enter a moment of crisis where it's like, hey, all right, come.
Yeah. What is the Dean and Sarah book that's kind of about this topic?
Something saved Christian.
Unsaved
Christian.
Is it the Unsaved Christian?
Unsaved
I think
Christian.
I've not read it, but I've heard, and you've read it.
Heard some
and
of
said,
it.
Like, that's a pretty good.
It's really what this
is
is
a really
about.
good resource on that topic.
Yeah, it's
right?
like cultural Christianity that
Yeah.
people, because they're Americans, think they're Christians.
And how to sort of unpack that
Yeah.
and help people see through that. No, that's good. The other thing is that you said is in the same vein, it's not just a belief, but it's also saving faith is not an emotional response. What were you getting at there?
Well, so from the text, you see the demons shuddering, right? So they believe what God has said. They believe in God, and they shudder. That's like, and so I think about the Mufasa moment, right? They're like, "Whoa, like this, there's power." They know the power of God.
Bro, also just casually dropping the like gospel understanding of the Lion King in the middle of the service. I was like, what is going on here? That's awesome.
And so
who's Zazu? Is he like Peter or something?
I don't know.
Me neither.
No, he's the dove that comes down at the baptism.
Just the first bird you can think of in the Bible. Excuse me.
You're good. What were we talking about?
Even the demons believe in shudder.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah.
They have this emotional response.
Right. So they have this emotional response, and they know the power of God. They know the truth of God. They're in awe of Him in a sense, and yet they're not believers, right? And so for me, that just really made me think about the emotional manipulation that I've seen through my walk of whether that's sometimes it's at church camp, right? Sometimes it's at revivals. I remember I was at a church camp one time, and the guy's up there, and he's like doing the invitation, and I don't know how many times like we're gonna sing one more verse.
Song.
All right. If you want to do this, raise your hand. Everybody, close your eyes. Raise your hand. Okay, now stand up. Okay,
like
now
you may be on the bus home and get in a wreck and die, and you're going to hell.
And
if you don't want to go to hell, stand up.
Yeah.
We're singing another verse.
It's like I'm all about an invitation. All about calling people to respond. Like I don't, there's a lot of ways to do that, and a lot of that's gray. And so I'm not trying to say right or wrong,
other,
but it's like, but when you're trying to manipulate and you're trying to,
kids are tired,
or maybe you end it with this really dramatic story. It's like, that's also kind of complicated to think about, but it's like, there's a lot of manipulation going on. And not even ill-intended manipulation. There's good intended. And so it's like, I've been at camps or revivals, where people are on the floor crying.
Cry night, camps have
camp cry night. Yeah. And it's like all this stuff. But then fast forward 6 months, no change.
Yeah.
And so, but then there's all these other things connected to it, right? So it's like, I talk about that one song that just kind of hit me in our service. And so what I've got,
and then we didn't sing it.
I know. I told Nathan like at Thursday,
dude. That's that's one of my favorite songs we sing.
That's a good one. But I've got to be careful not to try to recreate that moment in my own head, right? And so because I think we are chasing the serotonin hit or the whatever, the dopamine hit, and so it's like, hey, we're trying to work ourselves up. That's why sometimes people will say, oh, this thing happened in worship, and it sidetracked me and it ruined the whole thing, right? The slide was wrong, or someone played something out of tune, or the drums missed, and it messed it all up. And I'm like, hold on a minute. You're telling me your worship of the all-powerful God was what got messed up because was dependent and got messed up because this one little thing happened?
Yeah.
No, really what messed up was you were trying to get yourself in this state, in this trance. That's a good word. And that took you out of it, and it ruined an experience for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you've actually done is made this worship about you, not about God.
Yeah.
And I just think, man, that's so everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hard.
I think like we're coming out. Like I think the revival, like youth camp era of like really convicting kids of like their sin, or people of their sin,
Yeah.
and like getting them real worked up about they're scared of going to hell.
Yeah.
I think that era has like gone.
Yeah.
Because that's like this conjuring up this like negative emotion or generating this negative emotion. And I think what you talked about on Sunday was really helpful is that the pendulum has swung in the other direction. And now it's like we've turned Jesus or we've turned worship into this pill we can take when we're sad.
Yeah.
And it's going to make us happy.
Yeah.
And so I think, now, the service or whatever, it's not about making people so scared about their sin or scared of going to hell.
Mm-hmm.
It's about making people believe, hey, this moment is so good and so right and so beautiful and amazing, and God's making you so happy right now. Don't you want to follow him?
It's like almost hippie-esque.
Yeah. Well, then it's like, what happens when you go to your favorite band's concert and you feel the same way?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, maybe God's not real. Maybe I just like music. It's like, I think that's a fair question.
Oh yeah. That's the other thing. I mean, here's the hard tension. That, emotions are good and real and part of the human experience. And we're not trying to be stoic where we don't feel anything. When you got saved, the chains of your heart broke and you were set free. Think about that Charles Wesley song, my chains fell off, my heart was free, I rose, went forth and followed thee. It's like that happened. Like that's emotional, right? And you're probably never going to have that sort of emotion again because that happens one time. But we loved it, and now we want to recreate it. And so how do we get that? And what kind of things can we add to get that? And it's like maybe just step back and just sometimes it's just normal life. It's like, oh man, yeah, there's Jesus. He's great.
And I think part of it is when you really understand the holiness of God and you really understand the depravity of your sin, worship becomes much easier.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not actually dependent on this like emotional whatever.
Yeah.
It's dependent on you understand that you're a creature made from dirt who rebelled against the most perfect being in all of reality.
I almost used this and I didn't. I probably should have. But Rich Mullins was having a concert, and
I love this story.
You
talking about Awesome God?
The song?
Is it when he's playing Awesome God?
No.
I thought you were talking about that song, the time where he was playing Awesome God, which is like his big hit. In the middle of it, he said, "I don't want to play this anymore," and he quit.
No, that's very Rich Mullins. No, but so he does this concert.
Okay, I know the story you're talking.
And he's done with the concert, and this lady comes up to him afterward, and she's like, "I have never felt God like that in my life. The way the Spirit moved in that was the most worshipful experience I've ever had." And he looked at her and he said, "Honey, I'm sorry, but that wasn't worship. That was emotion. Worship is when you go help your next door neighbor cut her grass because she can't do it herself." I just love Rich's ability to be like, "Sorry, you're wrong." But like that's true. It's like
that dude's
was
awesome.
in this trance experience, right? And it was emotional and all this stuff. And it's like maybe good, maybe bad. It's hard to parse all of that, but doesn't make that worship. Worship can be non-emotional and it still be good worship. And so we just got to be really careful about how we're, as the church, dealing with those things and not trying not to be
we want to honor emotion.
Yeah.
We don't want to play to it. We don't want to manipulate it.
Don't want to manipulate it. Yeah. Want it to be genuine and real and don't want to try to conjure it up.
For sure.
It'll happen when it happens.
Yeah.
And it's not better that it happens.
Right.
It's just sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
So.
I think there is a problem on both ends, like most things, right? That you could be in a church that's like, hyper emotional, hyper manipulative, hyper, trying to pluck your heartstrings every time. But you can also be in a church that doesn't care about that. Yeah. And you're not, it's like, it's whole, you want to be holistic, right? You want to, all of you to be changed, to be affected. So you can't have one or the other.
Right.
So then last, your kind of final point was kind of a definition of saving faith. So it's not belief. It's more than belief. It's more than
not
emotional
merely
response.
Belief.
Yeah, that's helpful language.
Yeah, not merely emotional response.
And then that saving faith is a life fully surrendered to God, joyfully obeying Jesus as King. what do you add to that? You know?
Well, I mean, to simplify it,
Yeah.
I just think the word trust is really important.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at look at the two stories James references, Abraham and Rahab.
I'm glad you brought up Abraham.
Why?
Because I got a question for you here in a second.
So it's like God calls them. Well, God specifically calls Abraham to do something, and it takes great trust to follow through with that. It's not blind faith. And Hebrews is so helpful to tell us that he believed that God would actually raise Isaac from he did it. And so it's the trust. So I think faith and trust are almost synonymous, right? So he had trust in God. His belief in God led to trust in God, which led to an obedience to God. And so that's why it's not just a belief system, it's trust. I don't just believe that Jesus died on the cross for my sins as an abstract concept. I trust that his death is a propitiation for my sin. I don't just believe in it, I trust in it. And those are different.
And one thing like we've been talking about in youth is like the reason we can trust that about God is because we have all of the scriptures where we see that God has been continually faithful, continually redeemed. We talked about the end of the story of Joseph at youth last night, and like the whole thing's about redemption. It's about reunification. It's about a brother that stands in the place of the other brother who is committing a crime and takes his place, and they're reunified, they're redeemed. So it's like this is the story God's been telling throughout all of time, and it's also the story of look around on a Sunday morning that he's telling and all that. You can trust God because look how he's been working. Look what his character is like throughout the scriptures and throughout the work of the people, even today. Yeah. And so you don't have to just believe it. You can trust it because there's people in this room that it's happened for. Yeah. And so I think that's really, really important. It's like, it's not blind faith, right? That we talk. It's not, you don't check in your brain, right? It's like, we can know that God is good and faithful and believe that and have faith in that, have trust in that because we can see it. We can, because of the works of other people, right? Because of the works of people in the scriptures.
For sure.
All right.
Abraham.
We don't have a ton of time.
Okay.
How was Abraham justified?
So it's so
was it by faith alone? Yeah. Romans 4? Yeah. Or was it not by faith alone? Yeah. And works in faith? James 2.
So fascinating that you've got these two different authors, two different books, saying about the same exact story, seemingly contradicting things. I think one of the problems is because of the Protestant Reformation and because of the way we've couched the issue, it sounds so jarring when James says, and therefore you are not justified by faith alone.
Because he particularly uses that phrase.
Yeah. It's like
sola fide, right? Faith alone.
Yeah. And so it's like, that feels very jarring. But we believe the Bible is a whole book that does not contradict itself. And so how do we understand this? Well, when you understand James's whole argument, he's not saying that works are going to justify us. You go back in his own book, right? And he's like the implanted word, which is able to save your soul and other things. And so James is saying that that the justification of Abraham is manifested, is seen through, is expressed through the thing that he did, right? It doesn't work if God says, Abraham, go sacrifice your son. He goes, God, I believe you. And he doesn't do anything. That's not faith. It's not trust. So how did the belief, the trust, the faith, how did it manifest? What manifested in obedience, right? In that story. And so he's justified by faith alone, but that is expressed through the actions he took that prove the faith true. So how do you see it? You can't see it just because he says it. Yeah. You see it in the action.
It's almost like, tell me if you think this is helpful. There could be, people are automatically gonna be like, no, Ryan, this isn't helpful because what I'm about to say. But it's like, you can almost imagine two different parallel universes. Okay. Where Abraham says, yeah, I believe you, but doesn't do it and is still justified, right? Because it's not that his faith is not existent. It just maybe faltered in a moment, right? That's a very real thing that can happen to anyone. Sure. Just wouldn't be a very good example for
anybody to point to.
Yeah, exactly.
They to point to a different moment in his life.
Exactly. and then there's another. I think there's another one where another parallel universe where he's like, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be obedient, but doesn't actually trust God. And it's just kind of like trying to protect. He's like, God's powerful. And I'm just going to do what he says because he's scary. And so I'm just going to do it. And he's not justified, even though he's like, I trust you, God, and I'm going to go do it.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not, it's so difficult. It's not the two things independently of one another, right? But it's the reason Paul and James are pointing to it is because it is this moment of genuine faith, both expressed and experienced, right? And so I think
it's like we would not point to Peter's conversion at the moment of his rejecting Jesus, right? It's like that's not the moment we point to, but we do point to after that when Jesus is like, "Hey, feed my lambs." No, feed my lambs, feed my lambs.
Oh, you're saying when he denies Jesus?
Yeah.
I'd be like, that's where Peter was converted.
Yeah. It's like
sure.
he's got a faulting moment.
Yeah.
Right. But then he has this moment where he believes and he obeys.
That's
God, I'm going to go do it.
I'll be honest. That's such a fascinating question. Like, when does Peter have saving faith?
That's
a great question.
Yeah.
Because on one hand, it's like, yeah, but you are the Christ.
Oh,
and then he has this faltering where he denies Jesus and then he gets restored. Or some people say that he actually did have saving faith until the feed my sheep, feed my lambs moment.
Yeah.
And so that's fascinating in and of itself, and talking about the faith and works. I think ultimately it's important to understand that we have finite vision when it comes to this issue.
Yeah.
Like of if someone is justified or not.
Yeah. Yeah. But you think about going to the disciples. You've got Judas.
Perfect example.
Who seemingly believes all the things the disciple believes, has the same teaching, is casting out demons, right?
Doing all the works.
But then in the end proves to be an unbeliever. It's not that he lost it, it's that he never had genuine faith to begin with.
Yeah.
And so, but
in the same, like James is not pointing to Judas and being like, look, he had faith and works.
Yeah.
Right? Where I think a more sort of Catholic understanding of faith and works, it's hard to argue with
sure.
Like, a view of Judas or someone like Charles Templeton, right? Yeah. It's like they did faith, they did a faith.
They did a faith.
And then they did all the sacraments, right? And so it's like, boom, justified.
Yeah.
When we're saying not as simple as that.
Yeah. Well, I think here's ultimately what we're saying. You are born a tree that produces rotten fruit or no fruit. And God has done a magic trick or whatever in the nature of the tree that you are, and he's transformed you into an apple tree, and now you will always produce apples. Some years there'll be fewer apples, some years there'll be a lot of apples. Every now and again there might be no apples, but there will always then be more. And so he's changed the nature of who you are, and so you are an apple tree. You will produce apples. He's changed you into a new creation. You will produce good works.
Have you been reading Orthodoxy by G.K. Chesterton?
No, but it's just always in my heart.
That felt a little orthodox.
That's what. Yeah. That's.
All right. Well, any final words on faith and works?
Don't go
Master
read
Chief?
Orthodoxy because it's too hard.
No, it's super hard, but it's
good.
I was about to say it's a good time. I don't know that it is a good time.
No.
I was gonna say, Brent, like maybe a new segment we should do on the show is like, what you been reading?
Oh, that'd be fun.
So what you been reading?
Oh gosh. Well, I just finished a fiction book.
Okay.
I just finished book 5 of the what's it called? The Stormlight Archive.
The Lord of the Rings. No, I don't know.
I've never read it. So I think I'm going to read it for the first time this year.
You should do it.
I've watched it a lot.
Yeah, me too.
But
I actually don't think I've ever finished Return of the King.
What? The movie?
The book.
Oh.
I've watched the movie several hundred times.
I've watched all 3 extended editions in a row.
That's crazy. That's like
9 hours?
No. One of them's 4 hours long extended.
Whatever it was. I sat through the whole
That's
thing.
wild, dude. That's like 12 hours.
Before I was married.
Yeah, that tracks. So you finished that book. What are you reading right now? Anything?
I've got like a bunch of stuff I'm like halfway or like
okay.
kind of in. Like I'm reading a book on C.S. Lewis and medieval theology. It was a little bit of a slog at the beginning. Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm actually super interested in that book.
So I'm reading, yeah. But next time I'll be more prepared. I'll have some good thoughts. What are you reading?
I just finished. I've been talking to you a lot about this Gavin Ortland book I just finished called Why God Makes Sense in a World That Doesn't. And it is also very dense and confusing at times.
String
theory.
theory.
Talks about string theory and like dark matter and like gravity and parallel universes, and that's just one chapter though, so it's not the whole thing. But it's really good. It's a really good apologetic book. I'm currently reading a Russell Moore book called Adopted for Life.
Oh
which
yeah,
is excellent.
Great book.
And The Iliad by Homer Simpson.
Circa 300 BC?
Circa 3. I don't know. Yeah, 300 BC. I think that's right. And so it's been interesting. Not what I expected. But the next thing I want to read, well, actually, as we were sitting here, I thought, dang, I really want to read a biography about Rich Mullins that's called Ragamuffin
Gospel, yeah.
So I really want to read that. But I also just got a book by Eugene Peterson. Yeah, from Nate, our other new
fellow elder,
who got me a book called The Pastor, and it's a book about pastoring by Eugene Peterson. So I'm really running through Adopted for Life, so I can jump to The Pastor by Eugene Peterson.
Very good.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us for the recap. We hope this conversation has encouraged you to help to keep. I got distracted by Brent turning his head dramatically. To keep making Jesus essential in every aspect of your life. If you aren't part of our church family, you can join us at 10:30 a.m. each Sunday morning. I'm not using my notes, so it's different this week. If you want more information, you can always join us at myfellowship.church. Thanks for listening. Be blessed.